Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So as everybody knows, Kanye West has been canceled by corporate America. And I want to take time to share my thoughts about this. This is a continuation of my series of videos dealing with Kanye West and his controversy. So Kanye West made anti-Semitic statements. And prior to making these anti-Semitic statements, Kanye West wore a White Lives Matter shirt during Paris Fashion Week, and that caused a lot of controversy and conversation. And then during that same time period, Kanye West also basically defended the officers who killed George Floyd. Kanye West said that George Floyd died from fentanyl and not from that officer having his knee on that brother's neck for over 8 minutes as he was crying out that he couldn't breathe. So, of course, the family is outraged, and they actually filed a lawsuit or threatened to file a lawsuit against him for millions of dollars. And basically, Kanye West was citing a documentary done by Candace Owens. And we know a lot about Candace Owens. She is a super conservative. She is someone who panders to the alt-right. She is a sellout for, by any definition. So Kanye West finds himself in hot water. And I just want to talk about this. I'm going to run through the various companies that have basically canceled him. First of all, one of the most significant things that has happened to him is that Adidas has backed away from him. They have canceled their deal with him. And because of that, he is no longer officially a billionaire. Kanye West was bragging during one of his interviews about how he was the richest black man in history. And now his fortunes have reversed. He's no longer a billionaire because of the cancellation of this Adidas deal. And also Adidas is talking about how they can still sell the designs of Yeezy without using his name. So they can still profit off of his product. And so that's one of the huge things that has happened to him. He has been dropped by Def Jam. Him and his label, Good Music, have been dropped. His talent agency dropped him. Gap removed Yeezy products. Balenciaga cut their deal with him. They cut their ties with him. And it even has gone to the point where Madame Tussauds Wax Museum has decided to remove his wax figure. Now, there's a lot that can be said about this, and these are some of the things. I'm sure that there are more things. Another thing is Footlocker is no longer selling Yeezy products. And actually, I saw an article where they were saying that Kanye West pulled up at a Skechers office and he was turned around or something to that effect. So this man is being canceled all around. And I have to share my thoughts about this. First of all, I will say this, I don't have much sympathy for Kanye West. And the reason why I say that is this, we have given this brother time and time again, all these passes. We gave him a pass when he said all kinds of ridiculous things. And I find it peculiar or outright silly that you have some of these pro-black people out here defending Kanye West, despite all the things that he has said, despite the things that he has done with respect to the black community. All of a sudden, because he is making these anti-Semitic statements, people are rallying around him as if he's some kind of hero or something, as if he is some kind of Malcolm X type of figure. And I've seen this, comments, comparing him to Malcolm X, saying that he's brave and all this and that. He's not brave, he's foolish. He's not brave, he's bigoted. He's not brave, he's prejudiced. And I just want to go into this. First of all, he can't be some kind of pro-black superhero when he's making derogatory comments about black people. This man said that slavery was a choice. That is complete disrespect to our ancestors. It shows a complete lack of knowledge. It shows that he knows nothing about the history of our people. It shows that he has no respect for black people. It plays into that narrative of the docile slave. the narrative that black people were happy as slaves and content with slavery. And that completely goes against the historical fact. The fact of the matter is many Africans who were enslaved sacrificed their lives for freedom. They would rather be dead than be slaves a lot of times. There were many rebellions plotted and actually implemented during slavery. You had people like Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, all these Gabriel Prosser, all these different rebellions that took place on slave plantations, on slave ships. We did not choose to be held in bondage. We resisted slavery with every fiber of our being. You had people like Frederick Douglass and people like Harriet Tubman fighting for the freedom of black people. That has been our history. Our history has been one of resistance, but yet this ignorant man said that slavery was a choice. That's absurd. And that's dismissive of the suffering of our people, is disrespectful. And he should have been canceled when he said that. I mean, have we forgotten that this man was selling Confederate clothing? The Confederate flag is a symbol of white supremacy, literally. You have white supremacist groups who use that as their symbol. Groups like the KKK, groups like these alt-right movements, defending the Confederacy. And during the civil rights movement, hate groups, races that were against integration, against basic civil and human rights for black people, like the right to get an education, like the right to vote, like the right to eat where you want to, the right to sit where you want in a bus. Black people fighting for these basic rights. When black people fought for these basic rights, these white supremacists used symbols such as the Confederate flag and Confederate statues to push their movement against our civil rights. So it's not just about history, in terms of during the Civil War. It's about the present day usage of that flag and what it represents. And also, when you look at the history of the Confederacy, that is a system of government where you had basically these traitors, these treasonous people wage war against their own country, costing thousands of lives in order to protect their right to enslave black people, to rape black people, to sell black people, to beat black people, to rip apart black families. They fought for that right. And that Confederate flag was their symbol. But yet and still, this man, Kanye West, thought it was appropriate to wear and sell that type of imagery. Have we forgotten this? Have we forgotten, as I mentioned earlier, that this man basically blamed George Floyd for his own death? Said he died from fentanyl, ignoring the fact that officer had his knee on that brother's neck for over 8 minutes as he was crying out that he can't breathe? Have we forgotten about that? How in the hell are you turning this Negro into Malcolm X under those circumstances? Do you think Malcolm X would open his mouth to defend a pig punk police officer that killed a black man by placing his knee on that black man's neck for over 8 minutes? Do you think Malcolm X would defend that? Do you think Malcolm X would defend a man that basically was walking around with a white supremacist slogan on his back in order to get attention, in order to get fame, in order to sell products? Do you really think Malcolm X would support that? If you do, you don't know about Malcolm X. If you do, you haven't read his speeches or listened to his speeches. You know nothing about Malcolm X if you believe that. But this is what is passing for pro-blackness in today's time. People are elevating this buffoon into some kind of folk hero status and making him out to be some Malcolm X figure when he is literally the house Negro that Malcolm X talked about in that famous speech. He is literally that person. This man is using a white supremacist slogan. It was white supremacist groups that came up with that White Lives Matter slogan. Groups like the KKK, and they were reacting to Black Lives Matter. That's what they were doing. They were reacting to the movement to protect black people from police brutality with a counter movement. And you have this guy, Kanye West, embracing that counter movement. But yet you have these people defending him. Yet you got the Nation of Islam of all groups defending this guy simply because he's uttering this anti-Semitic rhetoric. And I have to talk about that. I'll get into that in a second. But despite all that, black people did not cancel Kanye West. Black people continue to go to his shows. Black people are the ones that propped this man up. Black people signed this man. Black people gave him a chance. Black people went to, bought his records and went to his concerts and stuff like that. Black people stood beside this man. Black people bought his Yeezys. They bought all this stuff and supported him. But how did he return the favor? He threw black people under the bus, and black people continue to accept him. And we are to blame for not canceling this guy a long time ago. We should have canceled him well before any of these corporations, these hypocritical corporations that I'm going to talk about in a second, long before they canceled him. And one thing I forgot to mention is that Chase Bank also canceled him as well. They wanted him to remove his hundreds of millions of dollars from their bank. But long before all that, we should have canceled him. And the sad thing is, the same people that failed to cancel him are calling out the corporations, are saying, well, why didn't you cancel him when he said all this stuff about black people? And that is a legitimate question, but the bigger question is, why didn't we cancel him? If we, as many people have said, if we don't stand up for ourselves, how in the hell are we going to expect anybody else to stand up for us? If we don't have what it takes to cancel the traitors amongst us, then how in the hell are we going to expect somebody else to respect us? See, these other people understand their worth. These other people demand respect, and they're willing to do what is necessary to gain their respect, to receive respect, even if it means that they have to sacrifice in order to obtain that respect. We used to be like that as a people. We were like that during the civil rights movement when we boycotted the Montgomery Bus Company. When we said we would rather walk to work, we would rather carpool to work, we would rather sacrifice than to endure second-class treatment and disrespect. That's how we used to be. We used to march in the streets and face the fire hoses and the police dogs and the arrest and all that kind of stuff. But nowadays, some people won't even come out to a meeting or something. Nowadays, people continue to support these sellouts and traitors amongst us. And we are to blame for that. Before we point the finger at these corporations and their hypocrisy, we need to look in the mirror and address ourselves and our own shortcomings. I mean, I have to look at myself. After all this stuff, I do videos about Kanye West and all that kind of stuff. But after that, all of that, I still listen to his music, still listen to Donda, still listen to his classics, while I'm working out and stuff like that. We have to cancel this guy. And I blame myself as well. So, that's something that has to be mentioned. The other thing is this. I don't have any problem with these companies doing what they do. Like everybody, every group of people has every right to defend their interests by any means necessary. And that's what these people are doing. They put principle over profit. They're willing to go without money in order to make a point, in order to get the respect that they think that they're entitled to, because they know their worth. They're willing to go without receiving millions of dollars from Kanye West, like Chase Bank. They profited from him putting all that money into their bank, but they were willing to forego that based on principle. How many of us are willing to do the same? You look at Adidas, a struggling company, even though it's a classic brand, and I like Adidas. I rock Adidas all the time. But they are a struggling brand, and they know that Yeezy has contributed greatly to their profit margins, is helping them and stuff like that. But even they are willing to forego that in order to make a point. And Def Jam, a record label that just makes a lot of money, and Kanye West is one of their highest grossing artists. He's won many Grammys. He's sold millions of records and and all that kind of stuff, and streams well and all that kind of stuff. But they're willing to forego all of that to make a point, to stand on principle. And you can't help but respect that. Unlike the African American, they are not so forgiving. Unlike the African American, they are not showing this guy any mercy. We too often forgive the traitors amongst us with this false sense of racial identity. We will even accommodate a complete sellout like a Candace Owens, have her on our platforms actually debating with her as if she has some legitimate point when she has proven herself to be a traitor of the people. But we'll debate her. We'll talk with her, invite her to high profile discussions. Even prominent intellectuals like Cornel West will debate her, or somebody like Michael Eric Dyson. They are lowering themselves by even debating somebody like this. That person is not worthy to be amongst black people. She is an enemy of black people. She is a mouthpiece for white supremacy, and she should have been canceled completely as well. No black forum should welcome her. And, Star Trek, for instance, like in the story of Star Trek, when the Klingons renounce their own, they literally turn their back on that person. And that's what we need to do to people like Candace Owens and all these other buck dancing, sellout, handkerchief head, shoe shining, tap dancing Negroes. So that's what I have to say about that. And so I don't have any problem with these people taking action. I will say this, there is hypocrisy there with these companies because despite what I said about how it's our responsibility, if they're really concerned about bigotry and racism and all that kind of stuff, if they're universally concerned about this, they could have canceled him a long time ago. But I think that one of the things is they would have faced some backlash from black people, unfortunately. The same black people that Kanye West was disrespecting and all that kind of stuff, these would be the same black people defending him if these companies took action earlier. But yeah, I do think that there's something to that. They didn't care nothing about him making these anti-black statements and supporting white supremacist slogans until he started to talk about other groups of people, until he started making comments about Jewish people and all that kind of stuff. That's when they were concerned. That's when they took action. And I just think that does show a level of hypocrisy on their part. It does show that they are not as concerned about black people, even though black people help many of these corporations, by buying their products and stuff like that. But again, that's on us. We didn't put pressure on them to do anything. We could care less. We were loving Kanye's music, despite all the buck dancing, despite him sucking up to Donald Trump and shining Donald Trump's shoes and kissing Donald Trump's ass, even though Donald Trump has proven himself to be openly hostile to the interests of black people. We sat by and allowed that to happen. We sat by and didn't say hardly nothing. We did some YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. But these other people take real action and exercise real power. And one of the things is, one of the unfortunate consequences of that is that because of them taking this action, what happens is it feeds into these conspiracy theories. It feeds into these ideas of Jews as all powerful and all that kind of stuff and controlling everything, these stereotypes. That's what it plays into. And so I think that that's part of why, you had these people rallying behind Kanye West out of foolishness and ignorance. And there are a couple of things that I have to point out. Like, I have to talk about why anti-Semitism is wrong, and hopefully I'll be able to upload this whole video. I mean, we constantly speak out against prejudice. We constantly speak out against bigotry. And it's like, you can't speak out against those things and practice them at the same time. You can't talk about people racially profiling and stereotyping Black people, but yet you turn around and do the same with respect to Jewish people. Make generalizations about all Jewish people. That's just fundamentally illogical, and it's fundamentally morally flawed to do so. And it puts you in the same boat as these white supremacists. It puts you in the same point where you are basically embracing the rhetoric of white supremacists. And that's what Kanye West has done. You know, he praised Adolf Hitler as his idol and his teacher, Candace Owens, has done. You know, basically, Candace Owens panders to these white supremacists who celebrate somebody like a Hitler. So yeah, a lot of these anti-Jewish talking points are the same talking points from groups like the Ku Klux Klan, the alt-right, and it is ridiculous for Black people to find themselves rallying behind the same arguments as our open enemies. Make no mistake about it, the white supremacists are our open enemies, and they hate us just as much as they hate the Jews. And as a member of a religious minority, I'm a Muslim, as many people know. Muslims have been, faced generalizations and stereotypes and stuff like that based on the actions of a few, based on the actions of a minority. Because of the actions of a minority within the Muslim faith, Muslims are tarnished as terrorists and misogynists and all that stuff. And just as I think that is wrong, I think that it is wrong to tarnish and generalize against another religious minority, and that's Jews. There are plenty of, Jewish people that have supported the civil rights movement, plenty of Jewish people that support it today and, financially support it, support it with their time and their energy, and who have sacrificed for civil rights. And I just think that it is overly broad and it's just wrong to condemn a whole group of people. You can speak out against injustice without using generalizations. You can speak out against injustice without being prejudiced. Like, you can speak out against the problems with the music industry. You can speak out against, problems of predatory lending and all these other issues that are important to our people. You could talk about, exploitation in the music industry without condemning an entire religion. And, that's something that a lot of these people don't understand and they don't get. So yeah, those are my thoughts, just in general. Obviously I don't rejoice in, the downfall of Kanye West, but I do think that unfortunately he did this to himself. This man's ego is out of control. Like, I don't know if it's, he doesn't have people around him to advise him properly. Perhaps he surrounded himself with yes men. But because of that, this man is making these ridiculous and outlandish statements and literally sabotaging his career. And I think that's a disgrace, man. It's very unfortunate and sad to see this happen to him. His arrogance made him think that he was unstoppable, that that nobody could do anything to him. He talked about how he could be anti-Semitic and Adidas would not take his, get out of the deal or take it from him. But here he is, no longer a billionaire because of the reckless things that came out of his mouth. He talked about how he was going to go DEFCON 2 or 3 or whatever he said. And it turned out that the people he talked about went all the way all off on him. They went DEFCON 3 on him. And so yeah, that's what I have to say about this, man. I mean, we should never be in a situation where we're afraid to speak out on issues, and I will continue to speak truth to power. You know, I will speak out against issues. Like, you can speak out against the issues in Palestine without condemning an entire religious group. So that's what I have to say. Tell me what you think about this. Do you think it was excessive what has happened to Kanye West? Do you rally behind him as some kind of Malcolm X figure? Tell me what y'all think. And what do you think about the Nation of Islam defending him and about these other quote unquote pro-black people defending him? So please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video, and hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post new content on here. And also, I want to remind you, for those of you who like to read great books about black people, join our book club. We meet on the last Sundays of each month, and we're meeting this Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to discuss Octavia Butler's The Parable of the Talents. So I hope to see you there. I will post the invite in the comments. Peace and blessings. Have a great evening.